Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Weber, and we have the great privilege today to be with Venusian contactee and Pleiadian contactee and Earthian extraordinaire, Robert Potter. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you so much, Alfred. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. And again, I want to say to your followers and to the people who follow me, I have a lot of respect for you. You've been in this field a long time. You are one of the few people, you're absolutely fearless and get banned from YouTube and Facebook, which is a good sign. It does show that you're putting out information that people don't want to be revealed. And kind of along that line, the show we're going to do, I'm going to be presenting 2 PowerPoints and an actual book that's going to be talking about the Nazi Fourth Reich. And we're going to go into various aspects of that. But you are a wonderful person in your intent, and you're pretty technologically savvy, and you produce a lot of content. So I think that us working together is a really good thing, and I'm really honored. And I'd like to announce also that Alfred will be appearing at my Mount Shasta Summer Conference on live streaming. If we can swing it, most likely it'll be a pre-recorded presentation at this point in time. So we're going to have a little slot for Alfred to address, like I did in 2014. I think we live streamed that because I had the technical capabilities at that point. We might be able to do that, but we'll have to see. So yeah, it's wonderful to be here with you today. And there's a lot of wonderful, good news coming. And it's about truth. And that's what your exopolitics and what I resonate. And we've had our conversations. We don't agree on everything, but I tell you, we're in the same fleet. You know, we're each other's wingman, and nobody's going to agree on everything. We all have our own apperception and how we deal with things. And I think this is important, that people look and take different viewpoints in, and they have to find out and resonate with what works for them. So especially for this show, folks, I want you to keep an open mind. And to the second part of the PowerPoint that I prepared, Alfred actually converted me in a certain aspect, and we'll get into that later, onto a certain understanding about what we get into when we talk about the Hitlers. And there's a couple open questions here that are unknown, but we're definitely going to show conspiracy. And people say conspiracy theory that was created by the CIA to debunk that Kennedy, or that was killed by multiple sources, when clearly in Alfred's previous video with, I think it's, what is his name, Olam Pomp?
Yeah, Ola Damigard.
Yeah, Ola Damigard.
Yeah. By the way, I should say, as someone who took 8 years of classical Latin, 3 years of classical Greek growing up, conspiracy comes from the Latin conspirare, which means to breathe together. So maybe that'll, you know, people who get in the same kind of rhythm, in the same kind of algorithm.
Interesting.
Maybe that makes it easier to understand and to comprehend what a conspiracy, what a breathing together is.
Anyway, Mr. Damgard had a picture of George Bush leaning against the book depository. And I think at the time of Kennedy's assassination. So we can certainly see the Fourth Reich, and we can talk about the historical aspect of the control force being actually hostile extraterrestrials, and maybe go a little into the understanding of what's taking place on a higher metaphysical level. We'll see how the time goes here, but thank you so much.
Oh yes, and I am really looking forward to this show, and I want to turn it over to you because this really, I know I dealt with issues that we've been dealing with for a whole number of years and help crystallize, and I hope that it will help crystallize things for a wider audience, even for all of humanity in the world. Now that they're sitting at home, well, let them think about these deeper issues. Over to you, Robert.
Okay. Well, I'd also like to mention that my new website is going to be up. I keep saying it's happening. I've been saying it for months, and I actually have a very experienced code developer who's building me an HTML site from the ground up. It will be out in a week, and this first book is going to be available for free, as well as a second book I'm going to share with you. So without further ado, I think we're going to get into the first book, which actually I did not open up yet. My bad. I thought I'd done that. I always have a little thing here. So in my conference coming up this summer, we're going to have some really wonderful things. We're going to be meeting on the mountains and stuff. So this first book, and I'm going to just say it right out there to everyone who, if anyone who knows where the author is on this. This came to me several years ago. I'll give you a little background. It was in 2011, and I was doing my normal research, and I'm mostly very much researching extraterrestrial stuff, which I don't do so much. I have my own contacts and my own information, but what happened was I was looking at a Time magazine in the store. It said the most powerful woman in the world, and I got home on the computer, and the thing was there, and I looked at it, and I got one of my telepathic communications. And I don't like to say I channel. I'm just not into that. And now it's confirmed to me from what the Venusians have confirmed from my past suppositions and contexts, confirming that when I'd met many of them in my life, and I said, I met this one here, this one there, and they said, yes, all of those individuals that you met are confirmed as Venusians, all those experiences. So this telepathic communication said, Angela Merkel is Hitler's daughter. Research it. So I went online and I started looking into pictures of Eva Braun and Hitler and so forth, and it certainly made sense. And then out of the blue, and this is how they work sometimes, and we're guided to different things. And I know you are, and many people are. You have to realize that there are no coincidences, that the Spirit is bringing to you on the quantum level what you're open to. And we have to be open and keep our minds and imagination open. Now, this book is called Veil of Invisibility. And I'm not sure if you can, it's a big picture here, but this is a picture of Nikola Tesla in one of his huge Tesla coils, which I sell several of these types of products, especially with my pyramid systems. We'll go into that. It was written by Alexander Putney. And the history of Alexander Putney is he was the son-in-law, Jewish, by the way, of Otto Skorzeny, Hitler's personal bodyguard. And there's a lot of debunking on Otto Skorzeny, but I think this presentation I'm going to give is going to put a lot of things to rest. And this book that is going to be available for free on my website. Please wait a week. My website's going to have a whole new look. And when you go to books, it'll say free ebooks. And these books that you're going to see here today are going to be available for free. I'd also like to mention that I'm importing all my contacts to 6,000 people. You're going to have to re-sign up. I think you're going to be in the database, but you're going to have to change your passwords that you had on the old site for my inner circles and so forth, and I'll send out emails to that effect. Sorry, a little sideline. So the reason that Otto Skorzeny revealed this information is because George Bush, whose real name is George Scherff, actually had, backstabbed him several times, which is not uncommon in the den of thieves. So he was Eva Peron's secret lover, and she had left him $500 million of gold, which was stolen by George Bush. So at the end of his life, on his deathbed, he unleashed all of the information and provides tremendous photographic evidence of the Nazi infiltration into America and the world's political system in the Fourth Reich. And so we're going to see the underground Nazi bases, the deep underground shelters, and various things in the relationship to Hitler and the whole kind of narrative here. So this is going to be available in my book. We're going to slip over some of the texts, but we'll start off looking up here. Can you see the mouse going over the SS symbol on this secret space program vehicle? Can you see my mouse, Alfred? You're mute.
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So this is the Nazi SS. This picture here is showing the entrance to the Nazi base, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. Now, Hitler was absolutely fascinated with Tesla because he thought of him as a true Superman, the Aryan race. And in reality, my sources have indicated that Nikola Tesla was a Venusian bought here. Now, there was a term called Curious George. And Curious George was termed by Hitler for the son of George Scherff Sr., who we know as George Herbert Walker Bush. Because every time, and this is one of one of Tesla's free energy devices that was basically an antenna to provide free energy, and all you would need was an antenna. And this was available back in, 1905, prototype. So we're looking at, a technology that certainly could be employed, and that's another reason why it's not. Here we see the one we know as Prescott Bush. In reality, I'm going to reveal to you that he was a Nazi spy and infiltrator, and how these things took place. And there's the new thing called End of the Cabal, the big 10-part series. So here we go. So here we look back to 1950 Radio Engineers Banquet. Here we go. I'm going to circle here. This is Nikola Tesla. One of his primary financiers were the Nazis, and here we see Prescott Walker Bush next, only 2 people away from Tesla. We come down here, and I'm going to show you him. Here he is in 1915, and here you see him in 1937, and then you see him here as Prescott Bush. But you see his signature here that's on this picture with him signing it, and you compare it to the George Scherff signature on the Tesla, thus confirming that these two are the same. Don't worry, we have a lot more evidence, folks. Photoshopping, if you want to stay like an ostrich with your head in the sand, you can do this. Now, of course, General Butler, there's a whole bunch of information in here. So if we look here, here you see, after years of coming in, here you see the hungry wolf Nazi, not even involved in the actual Operation Paperclip, but in actually setting up the infrastructure for the Operation Paperclip previously, kind of showing, go ahead, Eisenhower, go ahead and sign. I want to make it clear that Eisenhower had met the Venusians on 2 occasions. He had met the woman that I met, Commander Aura Raines, on the tarmac in 1955. And he also had met Valiant Thor when they offered him the crystal book and sharing what the Venusian society would do if we could meet these qualifications to achieve open communication and a sharing of technology in the spirit of brotherhood and truth. The Nazis in control at the time, and the financiers and the military, the Jesuits, and all of these groups were very fearful of the Venusian information because they had a technology that was beyond theirs. It looked exactly like us, and afraid that they would start paying attention to Venusians instead of their controlled power structure, the Federal Reserve and all of that. And what was offered basically by the commander, Valiant Thor, on the authority of the Venusian and the solar hierarchy of light was, we have several prerequisites to become a member of the Confederation. Some people say we're a member of the Confederation. We are not at this point. The surface population is not a member of our local confederation, what's called the solar hierarchy. And real quickly, the solar hierarchy is comprised of all the planets within this solar system. And there are 601 planets extending out from the galactic central core in our radial arm of the galaxy, and 51 systems. So if you can imagine the wide variety of apperception, atmospheres, gravities, genetics, makeup of the Earth, there's a tremendous variety of life. There is a certain type of life that's human and has many variants. And there are, as I know, at least 3 different confederations within this radial arm. There's 2 primary radial arms. One, the Semyasi and the Pleiadians and the Tagatans and Swaru from the planet era, they are not in our confederation. Doesn't mean they're bad. They're very positive. They've had a lot of history with us. And there's another group called the Orion group, which some people call the Alliance. And they all have different levels of spiritual development. And at least these 3 groups I know are in what is called the Galactic Federation of Light. So there's subgroups, and even these other groups may have some groups that have member representatives. These details are not known. But when we want to think that the extraterrestrial good guys, as we call them, are working in concert in complete harmony and unison, this is a fallacy. And for those of you who follow Cosmic Agency, the Tagatans are kind of reacting like we would and saying, we want to make contact, we want to come in here. But the higher dimensionals and the overall view of at least a triumvirate of confederations, and I don't have any other information on how many planets are in the Pleiadian Confederation or in the Orion Alliance Confederation, or maybe Swaru is in the other, and Semyasi are in the Alliance one. I know that the Venusians are extremely spiritually advanced. The Pleiadians are very spiritually advanced as well. The Pleiadians are more technologically advanced. And, I'm not going to go into saying, one is more spiritually advanced than the other, and one is right or one is wrong. It depends on your viewpoint and where you're coming from. So the Tagatans have been kind of like, well, you're creating the reptilians, and it's your own negativity. And I'll be explaining that a little bit later. I want to get back to this, but it's important that we realize that these groups are working together now because these off-world groups that have manipulated and controlled groups like the Nazis and have used mankind's ignorance against himself into following these horrible, heinous plots. And again, I have to mention End of the Cabal and a couple other videos you can find on YouTube. It's in a 10-part series now, and it's quite revealing. They talk about Operation Paperclip, which this goes into. So here you see their influence. Now, this is a gentleman we're talking about, and you saw this is Prescott Bush. This is George Herbert Walker Bush. At this point, they're called the Scherffs. And here is Otto Skorzeny. And here, this is Hitler's bodyguard. And he's gone through quite a few changes here throughout his life, and you're going to see various pictures of him. So this book is going to be a tremendous revelation for those of you. Go to my website, and I will have a donation button, so I'd appreciate it. So here is a Skorzeny in the early days in some aspect, probably. He just chose to do this. He talks about the corporate influence of fluoride that was owned by the Bayer Corporation, that was financed by American money, and all of this stuff has actually been revealed in the documentary by this wonderful woman. And I'm not sure, she may have some military contacts. She's putting a lot of the pieces, the puzzle together. I kind of knew all this, but certainly don't have the technological capability. She's provided a lot of stuff on Hollywood as well. So there's the Curious George. So we go back. So Tesla would come in, and there would be George Scherff Sr. going, "Hey, Tesla, come here. Let's talk about this." And there was little George Bush, you know, this little kid over here, going into Tesla's laboratory and taking pictures. And Tesla said, "You know, you got to be your son is the stupidest kid in the world. I've told him 100 times, stop messing with things." He was in photographing and he was an ultimate spy for Tesla and the Third Reich. Now, this picture was shown in that documentary as well. This is the entire kind of official Nazi rocketry team that was bought over with Wernher von Braun. When they went into Peenemünde, according to Fred Bell, the Russians got the hardware and we got the plans. And the reason the Russians beat us in outer space was they had what is called the hydrazine pump, which under the tremendous G-forces had able to do it. And the version of the plans that we had weren't the final version that was put up that actually achieved it. So we had a number of tests till they figured it out with Wernher von Braun's help here. So this was how they came over. This goes into likely, it says, the first day she went back to fire lookout of California in the summer of 2002, there were intense radiation from dozens of RF microwave antennas surrounding the locus of heated metals. Her body enough to burn her skin. I still have these scars. I never wore jewelry to work after them. Likely lookout on U.S. Forest Service land with spectacular view is one of the thousands of RF microwave hotspots across the nation. So here he's talking about, this book was released in Information in 1997 about the use of microwaves, transmitters, and everything to control the body through the chemtrails and stuff. So these low frequency health transmissions were warned about us by the Pleiadians, and some of these technologies to battle this are on my website. So here is Otto Skorzeny. Now we go back to our movies, and you know they always show the guy with the scar on his cheek. This is Skorzeny. He was a nasty character, and you know it's really bizarre, but he kind of came out. So, of course, Tesla was very much a point of interest to Adolf Hitler. Now, here we see a little bit later version. And I want you to look at these pictures. Here is Prescott Bush. Here is Mother Prescott Bush. Here is George Herbert Walker Bush. This is little W, and this is Walker, the mother. I'm sorry. What was George? What's George? What's her name? George Bush Sr.'s wife is. Sorry.
Dorothy Walker Bush, you're talking about?
Okay. This is George Bush Sr.'s wife, Barbara Walker Bush, yeah. So here, check this, folks, out. Here you're going to see, this is one of the primary evidentiaries. You want to think it's photoshopped and go rah, the Bush family. I think you're going to get more information from End of the Cabal. They're going to be revealing a lot more stuff. They just started out with the pedophilia and how the media controls and manipulates. Very important information. This is a revelation of truth. So here we go. Here we go, Barbara Walker Bush. This is another Nazi named George Ralph. This is George Herbert Walker Bush Sr. Oddly enough, this is probably a cousin or something. This looks more like a Bush than here when they're young. You come over here, the man taking the picture is most likely Prescott Walker Bush. I don't know who these children are, these girls, but this is Martin Bormann of the Luftwaffe. This is Reinhard Gehlen of the SS. And here is our beloved Joseph Mengele. One of the most, I don't know where this guy, I don't know where any of this stuff comes from. It's otherworldly, satanic. It's sheer insanity. So this is taken, let me see if I can find out. This is taken in 1938, and Scorzini points himself out in the picture to his son, who he released this data dump of photographic evidence and files and explanations of what's going on. The Philadelphia experiment was really important. Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein refused to work on this invisibility project for the US government. And they pushed it through with some other technology. And the Philadelphia experiment did take place. On my website, in the HARP article, you'll be able to see these, the picture of the Philadelphia being flanked by two ships, and it goes sort of invisible, and then it's gone. And that is a whole nother story, the Montauk Project. When it came back into chaos, in this, Scorzini will actually reveal that he went in on the base with another guy, and they basically just loaded the stuff up and took it off. The base was in chaos because of the guys that were died inside the ship, and the whole thing is another story. I don't want to go into that. This is the USS Eldridge crew prior, I think, to the thing. And of course, all of this Nazi stuff goes down to the, you went to Yale, didn't you?
Yeah, that's the Skull and Bones tomb.
There you go, brother. So you got the Skull and Bones where they got, so we're going to be talking about that group. This is the death mask of Hitler. And Scorzini actually was the one who killed Hitler. They went into his room, and he was a frail old man. One guy held him up and held his arms, and they just held a pillow over his head, and he passed away. When he was found, his pants were down to his knees, and the guy that came in and discovered him, his door was ajar, something wasn't right. And why were his pants around his knees? A sick, weird sidelight. Tesla wanted to know if the rumors were true, if he had a large penis. And so Scorzini said he did that. They did take a bunch of the files, and they took some of the more advanced secret ones, and they left some of them so that the safe wasn't empty, and they actually were able to get those after his death later, and his patents and stuff. So this book goes into the number of patents it actually created and how Edison and everything and all this stuff was to marginalize and to remove him. So this, of course, is a Nazi spaceship. And they did a Tesla versus the Nazis cartoon, which they actually removed all of the information about that. It was removed. So now we're going to go to a favorite base of the Nazis in America, which probably still exists. And these circles here, this is the location of the entrance, which you're going to see. It's a secret underground Nazi base in Glacier National Park. And here's the extensive underground. I can guarantee you, since this book came out, this road has been changed, and this base, this entrance is, I will guess, no longer available. Hopefully, the extraterrestrials have, and the positive military. This is a little machine gun nest, okay? So here we're gonna go, he took a picture of this, and machine gun nests were the favorites of the Nazis. I've been to Berchtesgaden, the Wolf's Lair, where Hitler was, and they had extensive tunnels with machine guns around every corner that run on autopilot. Probably not remote sensing, but they would just turn on. So this is the machine gun nest up here, and this is the actual cave opening. And for those of you who've seen Gene Decoder's information on the underground bases that are being raided and taken out, this is the actual Nazi base opening up. There probably are maglev trains going elsewhere, but this is an entrance probably for a certain level of individuals that had access to this entrance. I'm pretty sure this is no longer here after this, what they would call traitor Scorzini revealed this on his deathbed. As a side note, I had a girlfriend, and we went to a house for dinner in Mission Viejo, and this guy, we're talking about what he did, and he goes, oh, he says, I go, what did he do? He goes, well, I build these security things. And I go, what are they? He goes, oh, well, they're very high level security. You go into it, it's kind of like at the airport. You go into it, your body's kind of scanned. It does eye reading, weight, fingerprints, and everything. And it's a double lock. So if any security thing comes up, they lock you in there. And he goes, oh, he goes, I do that for government bases. And I grilled him like a cheese sandwich and scolded him. I said, oh, I said, I go, well, where do you? He says, well, we do some stuff in Denver. I go, oh, underneath the Nazi base in Denver. And I go, those guys are going down. I said, you know, and he clammed up after that, but he'd kind of given me the story. So, you know, this is a normal guy. He doesn't know what's going on in the base, but all of these bases are being fed by, you know, innocent people. Ice road truckers, folks, that's not a diamond mine. They don't need to bring up all this stuff. That's an underground base in Canada. So hopefully, again, these bases are being destroyed and being removed. And we'd like to believe that. And I believe that's true. And we'll talk about the end. Now, oh, let me show this. See the little lake here? This lake, Scorzini said, this particular craft is with the Nazi symbol on top there, the SS, has an underground entrance in the water. This is a CIA boat here, but it can go underground for a short period of time. And he said that this little rock here is not natural, that it provides a LiDAR radar to guide in these ships who go underwater for a period of time into the underground hangars. And these pictures are revealed in many of the underground bases and the truckers in there. I'll explain why this underground system was started in a little bit. Of course, here's the Nazi base. Many people know that it's laid out in a swastika. There's other bases in Italy laid out in the symbol of the Jesuits and all that. So this was a Nazi base, and this is where a lot of the voting information was controlled from. And during the Trump election, according to certain sources, they had disabled that and had allowed Trump to win. And there's lots of things that can go on. This is an artist's conception of what's called the Aurora Donuts on a Rope contrail. This is not an actual photo of the craft, but this is the type of contrail that this plane has. They did talk about the chemtrails and showing this is something that you generally won't see anymore as they control the information. They don't really show this in your weather forecast, but this is the chemtrail operation that is definitely spraying aluminum and barium, and that is to put heavy metals into the atmosphere. So when they crank up these RMF, the EMF, the ALF, and now the 5G technologies, it can attenuate to your body and create more influence on your psychological and your health disposition. And if they were able to manage to force vaccinations and have you take a chip, as the wet dream psychopaths want, there could be a kill switch in this. And of course, the heavy metals in the vaccinations are also bad. So, you know, we've had quite a few free days, and then every now and then I've noticed since the shutdown, we've seen some limited chemtrails, and I call out to the 1 or 2, 3 planes. I go, oh, where are all your friends? It took them all day, and the chemtrails weren't so heavy. Yesterday, they did quite a layering of chemtrails here in Shasta. So there's kind of a type of attenuation of a cloud here that with the heavy metals and the frequencies that Elon Musk's 5G is going on. And I'm hoping that the ETs and the councils are going to okay a removal of these outer space systems. Now, this has been around since the mid-90s. So this is a very advanced surveillance system. For all of you people who think the government cared about you and told you not an outlawed lead paint, they didn't want it in your house. Lead paint can, kind of last a long time. It's pretty strong. The reason is it's like Superman. The lead, their devices, when they look in your house and they want to see how many people, what you're doing and all of that, they can't do that if your house is covered in lead. Also, lead can protect you from EMF microwaves. So one of the things you might want to do, the people with the tin aluminum foil hats were kind of correct. Aluminum foil is not the way to go. It would be to line a room with lead completely. Lead can be purchased. I used to be a roofing inspector in construction for a short period of time, and you can get pieces of lead. You probably have to do a calico sheet, but and it's not cheap. But you could put that to protect yourself from certain things, including an EMF pulse. One of my secret space program contacts who put together the various technologies that the government would make different metallurgical companies. They'd make things, they wouldn't even know what they're for. This guy was in the company that put them all together in the secret military bases. And I revealed that information. So here, this is one of the technologies. This can, if it's probably has a photographic aspect too, it can come up to you. A little thing goes on your head for facial recognition. Then a line comes out, your name, your social security, your date of birth, your parents, every microchip. It come up with your entire credit history and everything. And actually in the Mall of America, where this technology is really strong, they can actually take your cell phone and tell you, they know where you purchased. They go, oh, you're going by a store that has a great deal. You like these kind of shoes. Check it out. So it's not only a marketing. This is the smart technology. This is the effort by the New World Order to completely monitor and control everything. This is why they need the high frequency. It's not only to control the population electronically in the biospiritual body, but to monitor every thought, word, deed, and action and hold it against you and do these things. So this was, when someone was coming on the road, they'd come over and look. Now, they have a decloaking device on this. They can blink in and out, kind of like a Venusian technology. They bend light around the craft. Probably not as advanced as the Venusians or the extraterrestrial ability, but it's been seen when it runs low on power, it goes over local power lines to recharge. And they've put some fake alien symbols on here, although it's definitely from alien technology or even from Tesla, who was an attempt by the Venusians to prepare us for the positive development on our world. So this is the device, and I don't know what it looks like today, but lots of pictures. They've been photographed in different places around, and this is possibly a more advanced version. So this is a kind of, I kind of have to disagree with this. This says that they never went to the moon, but I believe they went to the moon, but they did fake a lot of aspects of the moon landing. So this was a picture in a studio stuff here. So there's a lot of stuff in the helmet that's not recognized, but this is Buzz Aldrin. I went to school with his stepdaughter, and she goes, "What are you talking?" I said, "Ask your dad." I said he swore to secrets. He's not going to say anything. And she said, "Yeah, I went home. I went and asked him, and he was like, just give him this picture." So I have a picture autographed by Buzz. And these guys are probably highly mind controlled. I don't know. So here's Scorzini again in his full dress uniform. He said, why do we, he describes the repeated acts of extortion by George Scherff Jr., blah, blah, blah. So here we go. Guess what? Hitler didn't die. And here are their aliases and where they lived way back when. So we have Adolf faked his suicide. His wife, Eva Braun, lived at an unknown Bethesda, Maryland residence at a certain point in time. I mean, they were down in Nazi bases. He went to Austria and then the submarine to South America. And Nazis had a lot of sympathizers around the world, including especially in American high finance. And this has also been documented quite well by that woman in End of the Cabal on YouTube, and she's been banned from YouTube, but it's gone viral. I mean, I saw that it's had like 10 million views in like 3 days or something. I think it's up to probably got 40 million plus now. So here we have Morton Barman, head of the Luftwaffe, where he lived, New Bern, Edward Scherff, and at the time of this was 1997. He may have passed away by now. There's George Scherff Sr., alias Prescott Bush, financial secretary of Nikola Tesla, CEO of Brown Brothers Harriman Union Banking Corporation. Treason senator. He was senator of Connecticut. I didn't know that. Well, there you go. So here you got Curious George, who was supposed to, Scorzini said that he was supposed to do a hit on Tesla, but in the book, you'll see Scorzini called him a pussy. He chickened out and couldn't kill him with the car. He was supposed to run over him. And here's Reinhard Gehlen, that other gentleman you saw. And here's the alias Edward Frank Pinza. They were in Florida. There's Alois Brenner, and there's Walter Ralph, and there's Joseph Mengele, the alias Dr. Greenbaum, that worked out of there, and many of the MK Ultras have reported him. So here again, you see the picture, George Scherff Jr., Ralph, Barbara Walker, now Barbara Walker Bush, Scorzini, Gillen, Borman. And this is Scherff's mother here, and maybe George Scherff had a younger brother, I don't know. But some of these kids are unknown. I'd hate to be that girl, but she's a Nazi, so it's okay. So here they are, all yucking it up in America. a Nazi Christmas photo. Let's see, this is from below. Same time pyramid. Okay, this actually was in Germany. It looks like, and there he is with his beloved Führer. And here he is with his wife, and this is in Montana, probably in an area above ground near that base. Over here, he claims this is Adolf Hitler. Now, they didn't have facial recognition back there, but most of these guys had serious surgery throughout their life. I mean, you could see that first picture that I showed of him. His scar was completely gone. I think this goes into some of the stuff. And of course, these guys all work together, Netanyahu and the Bush, the Nazi connection. So now I'm going to go into the CIA Oracle. This is a woman. Her name is Susan Arrigo. Her father was a colonel at the Presidio in Los Angeles. And her story, I'm not going to go into this, but it's some good news. This is a tremendously spiritual woman. And I believe I met her and through a friend, and I spent an afternoon with her in her home. And she couldn't talk too much about things, but gave me a very short version. But she is a mind-controlled remote viewer, and the information that she reveals, the planning of 9/11 and how they wanted to nuke the surface of the planet and come out later is amazing. But her father worked here, and she was involved in a lot of the problems, and she had seen many people die, many children die in these experiments and in these Satanist Nazi programs. I'm going to let you read that on your own. This is her. And I met her in a little trailer park, and she kind of said, I'm controlled, you know. She told me who her husband was a high-level guy. I'm not going to mention the name here, but I didn't know about any of this. I didn't even realize I'd met her until literally 10 or 15 years later when this came out. So I don't know how that works out. Here's the Pentagon, what the extraterrestrials called the concentration of the most close-minded individuals in the galaxy. I gotta love that. So she talks about 9/11 and how it was planned, of course, and that all these guys know. I also recently met a girl who had to tell me that she didn't want me to mention this name. I go, well, don't tell me. I told her, I said, don't tell me because you're going to tell me something. I said, I'll protect your identity. And I went over, shortly after, I just told some people, then she came out, you told some people, I said, I didn't say your name. I said that you're a man. And she was actually in a briefing. She was a high level security. I think she was a captain in the army or something, or I don't even know, it didn't even matter, but all the generals were in there and they said, look, there's going to be an attack on the Twin Towers and you're all going to have to act surprised and act accordingly. This was months before. So clearly it was an attack. It was orchestrated by Cheney and Rumsfeld and the Bushes. So she did alert the authorities. She explains about bin Laden and how she healed him and where he was living and the fake death of the SEAL Team 6. Now, they used her for one particular thing, and we're showing here, I think, Nagasaki, and Fred Bell had mentioned this as well. There were certain monks with tremendous spiritual psychic abilities and powers that were able to go around and were ministering to people. They had no effects of the radiation, literally within this ground zero area. And, he said, well, of course, they take a lot of teas and everything so that their bodies, but there's something different, something special about that. So she had these type of powers. So, and she goes into her history and her spiritual development here. Anyway, so she goes into psychokinesis, but this picture was taken inside the government goes into caverns and they explode nuclear bombs. Underground testing was creating a lot of these bunkers. And so here's a picture of her under mind control. They send her in. She's wearing a little green thing, and she's wearing like a little Japanese monk's hat. And here she is right next to the epicenter of a nuclear bomb blast, creating one of these shelters. And then, of course, they come in later and they outline them and they make out whatever they're going to do with these. So, so she went in there, and she goes into the test, and she was actually able to mitigate the radiation. And then she's showing images of, some of these early underground tunnels, and Rockefeller was in there, and Cheney, Rockefeller, Rumsfeld will go, "Can you teach other people to do that?" And she's like, why? She goes, "We'd like to nuke the surface and then send an army of people that you've trained to reduce the radiation, then we'll come out from the underground bunkers." So anyway, there's George Tenet. You can read this book on my website. There's a friendly Cheney. Hopefully that guy's been taken out. So there you see George Bush Sr., actually George Scherff, probably George Walker. And look, they fake all the information. They control through the big money, like Obama's death or birth certificate. All that stuff can be altered, folks. And maybe he did at the end of the war come and serve in Japan for a little bit of a backstory, but these are Nazis through and through. And we've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, and the country's been run amok by these criminals. But now the time of the apocalypse or revelation is coming on the planet, and nothing is hidden. So this goes into the, she had written a report for GCI Webster about national security threat caused by the bioweapon warfare labs and recommended they all be closed. The records from Fort Detrick lab showed a vaccine against the HIV virus that had been developed had been given to many members of the Cabal at a White House ceremony on a summer solstice about 1983. The next day, a big lot of HIV-infected units of blood were shipped to kill all blacks in a war zone in Africa, and the existence of the vaccine was kept secret. The secrecy continued even after I recommended in my report the immediate worldwide vaccination begin, at that point for the actual vaccine, not the negative one. Anyway, so vaccines generally aren't good. So here we see she talks, she worked with the Bushes, and she's a high-level remote control psychic, and they constantly used her. So this amazing stories here. So the Nazi group is a white Aryan nation, as the drugs is. They grow, they're making meth, they're making coke, they're growing coke, heroin. All of this is grown in these underground bunkers to finance themselves, and it's distributed through various networks. Not only the white Aryan biker gangs, but other groups like possibly Carlos Slim's group as well. They obviously prosecute all the competition that's coming across in the normal way. So these guys are fast friends, as you're going to find out in the near future. So I think we got through that. So that's a pretty good one for people to ponder. You can watch this over, and I'm going to let you make some comments here, and I'm going to pull up some other stuff in the meantime.
Yeah, well, this is extraordinary, and the George Scherff, George Bush information bears close scrutiny, and the infiltration of the Fourth Reich into the United States bears close scrutiny. And so as the American people in 2020 are beginning to wake up to this pandemic, in the midst of this pandemic, whatever its causes, its multi-dimensional causes, I think that you're beginning to show some of the infrastructure that had infiltrated the constitutional offices and frameworks is a valuable service to ponder this and to really take it forward. So over to you.
Okay. Well, I'd like to give a positive thing, and there's lots of different theories going around, and I didn't get an exact admission, but the Venusians, I do know that from Raymond's new book that he's just finished, it's going to be published, and I wrote the preface for. I wrote the preface for. I wrote the introduction to another book that he's coming out with, and I wrote the preface to this other one, which was written by a woman named Lady Columba, who is a born on Earth Venusian, and we did the interview on her and showed her picture. You're going to find that on my website and the new stuff if you start rooting around there. But this book, she talks about being taken to the moon and then to Venus and being invited to serve in the Venusian contingent to the Earth. And they've been doing this for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years, taking people up from Earth who just disappear and become a member of the society. And this is a type of ascension known as translation. And when you go there, they do have a kind of a general health ray that they take regularly, vibration, and it's described in this book. And they also have a more advanced technology where they actually fuse the telomeres of your body and you at a certain age. So you pretty much look like you're from, I've never seen a Venusian looked over 30 or 33 years old, to be honest. They all look extremely healthy, extremely vital, and they're very wide variety. There are Japanese, there are blacks, there's a whole variety of genetics of Venusians, natives, and they're also members of the other confederations that actually can come to Venus and live there if they're part of the Venusian Confederation. If not, they don't have visas as such, but you know, a Pleiadian can come there and stay and spend time, but they can't become a naturalized citizen of Venus or live for any extended period of time, I don't think, unless their planet is a member of the same federation. And those are just simple rules that they have. So I wanted to give some positive information, and I want to be clear, because when we go into this next thing, in the next aspect of the Meet the Hitlers presentation, as I like to call it, Alfred and I have talked, and he actually, I had a theory on this, and I didn't get this telepathically, but I was kind of led to it, and it kind of makes sense. But we're going to discuss that. And one of the things that this is talking about, that this extraterrestrial mentioned. Now, the End of the World Cabal series of videos kind of paints Trump as kind of like a hero, that, you know, a lot of things have been, and I've asked this question because I definitely have doubts. I'd like to see if the theory that the white hats in the military have put him in position and he's under their control, he's not under a dark agenda. I want to see more evidence, and I want to see more stepping up. It definitely appears right now with the information flood that's coming out and the Q phenomenon in the government that during George Bush Sr.'s funeral, they served them with indictments. There was a military guy that was handing out notes. He had a Q cut into his hair in the back, and he walked down the aisle and handed allegedly indictments to Jeb Bush, the whole Bush and Clinton family and Obama scenario were all given notice at that funeral, allegedly. And there's some evidence with the Q stuff that it talks about John F. Kennedy being alive. And I have to say, I believe this. We'll have to see how this shakes down and how this comes forward. And with the ability of clones and stuff, there could be plots and subplots here. But I know that the positive military at the highest level, and most of them wouldn't know this, are working with benevolent extraterrestrials like the Venusians and the Pleiadians. And this will explain what they can and can't do. And the woman Gosha came out and, oh, the Confederation and some of the groups that came here left because they don't agree with the Galactic Confederation of Lights situation, or the way they want to treat us and keep the hands off. And this is a delicate subject for me, and I've asked these questions. In fact, I argued with Raymond, why aren't they doing this or that? And I had a couple of days of kind of ranting on this, like, people can't wake up unless they tell us the truth. And I said, look, they need to take down the satellites and provide educational documentaries. And I think this documentary is exactly what I was saying. And I've said this since 2013. If you go to truth references on my new website, or even on my old website, it's called Prepare for Change, my original documentation, based on COBRA's information that the extraterrestrials were going to enact a removal of the hostile aliens that are violating human free will. And the reason they haven't done it before is because, for several reasons. One, they'd had many battles and they were waiting for the proper time. And the proper time had to do with cosmic energies reaching our planet from the central sun and the evolution of humanity back to a level of being able to understand this. And so 26,000 years ago, electronic or portal fence was placed around the Earth, but portals move. So there have been a lot of different negative regressive groups coming here. And as Gosia says, we create the negativity, and that's true. But understand this. Let me give a little galactic exopolitics here, just a general, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of years. So just going to paint a little bit of a picture of the information that they've been sharing with me that I'm understanding now. And I've been in this for a long time, so I'm able to put this together. So let's just say there was some mutual experiments being done by a group of 23 or 24 extraterrestrial groups that were coming here to create a new physical vehicle that could be inhabited and be developed to hold a higher dimensional being. A fifth dimensional or sixth dimensional being could come and incarnate on the physical plane and be able to have its consciousness be able to function. And there was like not experiment, a nursery of a development. In the Bible, they say the seraphim created the beings, and maybe this is a type of being and administration. God created souls. God created creation. But there are administrators and ever higher hierarchies of association of consciousness, whether they're humans, the queen bee, or the leader of a herd or whatever, all the way up to leaders of planets on an outer world. And then there's an ensouling being, or cosmic beings, a being that ensouls the planet. They call it the Lord of the World, or the Ancient of the Days, known as Sudat Kumara on Earth. And maybe there's one called Helios, who is the head of the entire solar school. After you evolve, you reach a higher frequency, and then you would ascend to even a higher dimension. And so all of these, there's one God, one infinite created mind, but there are various beings. And people don't like to think of power, well, we're all equal. No, we're not. There are beings that have higher, and these beings are all maybe not necessarily perfect either. They're in their own evolvement, and they have different views and perceptions. So this is the grand cycle of the universe. So what happened was there was a very nasty type of war that took place known as the Orion Wars, and planets were being blown up and left massive scars. And prior, when this war was brewing, this is what I believe. I'm not sure of the timelines on this, but when this war was brewing, one of the groups that were on the Earth happened to be of a reptilian. They sabotaged the earthly experiment. And so they had kind of abandoned the human thing. Oh, well, the experiment didn't work out. And then after the wars took place, they go, wait a minute, let's go look at that experiment. And they found out that they had sabotaged the earthly experiment, and they came back. So there's kind of been this, these confederations last for 50,000 years, and if something comes up, and on certain levels of these confederations, they break up and have wars, and devastating. There was another war that took place on Earth 50,000 years ago, was even worse. It was more personal, it was more protracted, and it left a lot of scars in the soul memories of many people. Then let's go back, say, 26,000 or more years ago. The Earth had achieved the level of a paradise planet. And the Galactic Confederation were looking for places to take the souls that when they come to liberate a world, they remove the souls that are not of a specific frequency. And it's all done by consciousness. It's really a love meter. If they've developed a love and a service and understanding of a spiritual level on the soul, then they pick those souls up. If they don't, those souls are allowed to die and they're taken to another planet. This is a high administration. I don't know the details and know anything about the technology. I'm just giving it information. So the Earth, being a spectacularly beautiful planet with a highly developed kind of advanced civilization, much like on Venus and the Pleiades, was used to take what they call the laggards and bring them to Earth, including from Tiamat and Mars that blew itself up. And so they were hoping that the higher vibrational beings could raise the individuals up, which happened. But unfortunately, the higher tier of these beings either went inside the Earth or evolved and went on to their own ascension to other worlds and other dimensions. And the surface population kind of degraded. And there were many extraterrestrials interacting with the Earth at this time, and the extraterrestrials themselves are physical dimensional beings, like the Pleiadians and the Venusians are physical beings existing in what we would call the third and fourth dimension, the fourth dimension being time. So the 7 levels of the physical plane need to be understood. And there is solid, liquid, gas, ionic, and the 3 ethers. The Venusians, the Pleiadians, live primarily in the higher aspects of the etheric plane. They lower their vibration in service to Earth to become more corporeal, but they look exactly like us. So when we think of ascending to the 5th dimensional plane, this is a possibility for individuals at any point in time. For an entire planet, it's a much longer process. And when extraterrestrials say it's going to happen, for them, their lifespans are very long term, and from the higher dimensions that are administering to the lower physical worlds in the countless eons and the cycles and waves of incarnations and existence, a short time could be 20,000 years. So we do know that now we are moving into the 4th dimension. And to prepare us to achieve this, and of course, this goes into time travel, which you're very familiar with. This technology is being watched and monitored very closely. they're not allowing so much, and if they do that, they're watched closely, and they will interfere and in certain elements of time when there are cataclysms. In fact, in a future world, a parallel Earth world, there was a problem, and I'm not going to go into that. That's in Raymond's next book. But the Venusian woman who wrote this book was taken to Venus, and she acted as an angel force on a parallel Earth in the future to help rebuild it after something happened there. So we see that they do not generally go back in the past or into the future unless they see anomalies where someone else has done it. Then they'll go in and correct. And they only do major course corrections. So we've had this negative situation with these laggards down here with the negative thinking that has drawn in these lower, not just reptiles. There are many positive reptile races in the fifth dimension and in the fourth dimension, but there are certain Orions and Pleiadians and Aldebarans, and who knows who comprises these groups. But there's a group called the Omegans, or the Tall Whites. Did I show you that picture of a tall white? Maybe we'll do that. But so with all of this drawing down of humanity, they've been watching very closely. And what I understand is that 26,000 years ago, the battles were kind of heavy, and they just decided, look, we're tired of fighting the reptilians. They just quarantined the planet. They had removed, the Venusians kind of were in charge of this solar hierarchy with the affirmation of the Galactic Federation of Light, which includes the multiple federations, said, look, you can't come here, because certain of the ones that had intermarried with the Earth, which was okay, so in certain instances, had vested interests. They had family here, and they were taking signs, and they wanted to give them technology that they had on their worlds. But it was kind of not supposed to happen, because we did not have overall the spiritual development. We had a high level of civilization, but there was a still an aspect of humanity, of laggards, that hadn't really developed, and they were clamoring for disintegration rays and replicators and things that it's kind of like, in my interview that we did, she said, you don't give the keys to a car to a 5-year-old. We needed the spiritual maturity to handle this. And because of the cycles of destruction that we had, we have not built a superculture that lasts and continues for millions of years. And the physical plane, it's not just everyone's living there, souls evolving, but new souls are incarnating into this higher level of civilization, so they don't have the stress that we have or the problems. And the reason the Galactics are here at this time in mass numbers that I had documented on my Facebook page way back, showing the ships coming, large ships coming through the sun from March 15th to March 20th, and then hundreds of ships being photographed by the International Space Station and then being filmed around the world. This is not Project Bluebeam, as some people have said. They do have Project Bluebeam, and I don't know if they're going to bring that out at some point or what level is going to go on, but these were real ships, and they were coming in for the purpose of now the final cleanup of the dark forces here that had been quarantined, the demons that had been cast down from the higher dimensions, living inside the earth, from Atlantis and the Shaver Earth mysteries. They're called the Diro. And all of this is actually talked about in our ancient text and images. And these groups, with the reptilians and some of these groups, have actually feasted on human flesh. And though we go back, so we see the control network, how they did this through the genetic bloodlines of our planet, through the royal families in the Middle Ages, where people are talking about dragons and the torture chambers and the underground bunkers that they had there. We also had that in South America. They took over the pyramids that were originally built by benevolent extraterrestrials, and they were sacrificing humans for the parasitic entities that are in the higher dimensions, as well as to feed them to the reptilians. This is very disturbing, but Alex Collier, Corey Good, Cobra, myself, many of us have been aware of this, and we can look back in our history. It's not something to focus on. It's because it's such a sci-fi and a horrible thing, we want to turn away, but we must, through further investigation, understand the true history of our Earth. And this is part of my role, is to help people integrate and to reconcile the waking up that we're doing here, and to provide this positive influence. And so I'm going to share with you some information from the Venusian extraterrestrial that he shared with me. And I'm just going to read it. And they don't like to answer specific questions. They'll give a statement. You got to read between the lines, research, and they telepathically. I have questions, and I go through this, and every now and then they come around. I get a 20-minute download of information, and then they go when I get a little confused in certain elements. But here's what he said. He has other messages too, but and they're going to be on my website. We are known as a Galactic Confederation of Light. We are to be considered, while we are to be considered as one, we are also many. Various galactic councils have arisen in consciousness to join the Galactic Confederation, just as you, humankind, are also well amidst the process of joining your expanded family of light. We have long been an aid in regard to your acceleration in consciousness. We have many ships surrounding your Earth and have in place certain frequency complexes which have served and protected your planet from intruders or reptilians, the hostile aliens. That's my insert. For eons of time. This universe has not only consisted of a greater percentage of light as it does now. In fact, the amount of light which resides in this universe is at an all-time high. And the majority of beings here have in fact chosen to be of service to the light. Your planetary system is traversing an area of space which is abundant with cosmically radiated energy, which is generating each cell of every organism on your planet. Is penetrating each cell of every organism on your planet. As this occurs, many of you are initiating contact with our councils. As downloads of cosmic information are at an all-time high, you are experiencing a profound and necessary transformation in consciousness to discover that an interrelated, totally connected, and consciously intelligent energetic blueprint permeates all of existence and is completely accessible to everyone. This is known as the cosmic web of existence. And as your awareness to this new understanding of life blossoms and grows, your ways of living will also expand in ways that not be fully tangible to your generally accepted vistas of perception. Yet this is why transformation and disclosure is occurring, to allow humankind to expand into a much more expansive and explorative way of life, where you too will assist in systems of consciousness that are undergoing the same transformation you are currently completing. This is the nature of the Galactic Federation. We are here to assist free will systems of humankind consciousness in their evolutionary process. And soon, humankind too will go aboard ships and consciously assist those who seek guidance on behalf of their peoples. So what that is saying here, and I'm going to clear this up and then I'm going to let you make some comments because I've been talking again for a long time, but when I was having these conversations with Raymond about why aren't they doing this, they took me for what's called a night class. Valiant Thor, I petitioned this with Dr. Frank, and they take you out of your body at night and you have some teachings, and they only let me allow a little bit of the memory. At the end, they had showed me something about a girl who had a horrible condition and a horrible situation, and they wouldn't even let me remember the situation or anything, but I do remember it was Vice Commander Don who was teaching the class, and he said, he showed me this, and in response, I said, now I understand why you can't interfere. There is a certain level of a spiritual development that a person has to do. And because of the negativity that is here, we all have been kind of railroaded into doing negative acts. It's a matter of course. And when we do that, we kind of perpetuate for ourselves, because all energy must come back to us. And we have to balance this. And so what will happen is we have to shake this negativity from our lives. The planet will shake it from itself in the form of earthquakes as we move towards the inevitable axial flip and cataclysm. There's 2 ways, or maybe 3 ways, this axial flip or cataclysm can take place. One can be a nuclear degradation, and explosions could take place and cause an axial flip and precipitate a cataclysm, in which case they would come over with mass numbers of ships and remove the individuals that had this frequency that was attuned, either before or before remove a certain level, and then after the cataclysm, they would carpet bomb the earth with green fireballs to mitigate the radiation, and they would lift a number of people that are floating in the waters and swirling and take them aboard the ships. And they would help us rebuild the earth. And they can only do that then, because then the bigotry, the hate, the ignorance, the superstition and fear of those who hadn't already achieved the level of consciousness required, their minds would be open sluices to receive the galactic wisdom given to us. So it sounds like a very nasty way to do it. The other alternative is for those of us, and I'm not saying who, they have sent many avatars, but those of us who are waking up and achieving this, this is the time. And you're obviously, I'm going to call you out as a leader. There's many others who have already made the awareness of the game, and you're playing your role, and I'm playing my role, and everyone's playing their role in revealing this information. This is time to step up, to step into our power, to acknowledge ourselves. This isn't about believing in UFOs. It's about believing in yourself and the spiritual consciousness. So they are helping, and they can only help to a certain extent. And this is from the higher dimensions, and we just go, well, why can't, and I was just saying, like, why don't you take over the media, the satellite? Can't you just at least take down the 5G satellites and stop the chemtrails? I mean, we don't really have a chance. And so this is what is occurring now in these underground bases bunkers that you've probably seen, the fires in underground, the black smoke coming from Germany, and the takedown of China Naval Station, the San Bernardino, Dulce, New Mexico, Lawrence Livermore Labs, the underground Area 51. There are stories, which are not confirmed yet, that these places are being removed. Nazi, Denver, Mount Weather, underground. And these ancient tunnels and hidey holes that had been built out were planned by the world's elites and the Hollywood. I mean, they had 5-star, 6-star resorts with swimming pools underground. They were going to ride out this zombie apocalypse and come to the surface for complete enslavement. So we don't get any information out of China because it's very closed off. But so this is the positive aspect of what the extraterrestrials are doing. They're not doing it openly. The military is going to get the credit. And I do believe at the highest level, certain military elements have been chosen and are working in various military and national security intelligence agencies around the world and have compiled masses of evidence. And this is the time to switch, just as they were trying to do the end game kill shot. They came in and they're taking things out. Corey Good had reported they had tried to leave the planet and they were shot down. So they don't get to go to Mars anymore and hide. is what I understand. And I'm not sure about jump rooms or how many people can go there or what that situation is, but that's a little bit. So there's a lot to digest, folks. I suggest you listen to this carefully. My website, I'm going to be putting up a lot more information. I'm trying to write a book. A lot of my stuff is financially limited. They've asked me to create a center, a solar initiation temple with Raymond Keller, Omnic, and Louis Martens in Mount Shasta, to buy a property and to create a little island of light, maybe, that they will eventually use and come down and speak to people openly for more spiritual gnosis. And this is what they want, is to teach us the secrets of life and spirituality. This is not primarily about the politics of the earth. They don't get involved in that. They just want to see us develop on our own, free from subtle alien intervention. So I'll hand it over to you, and then we can we'll do part 2 of Meet the Hitlers.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that in-depth and insightful context, which is, I was taking notes here, and I think it's like, this is the end of the Cabal, the end of the Cabal revelations. Meet the Scherffs, parentheses, Bushes, and now meet the Hitlers, parentheses, Merkel and Obamas. So with that introduction, why don't we go to the second part?
Okay.
And, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. The second part here is basically a series of pictures that came to me, like the Angela Merkel one was one of these. And I did my research. Now, before I go into this, I want to say all of this, well, not every bit of it, but a lot of it is speculation, okay? I don't know everything about this, and I don't want to claim to know everything about everything, but Alfred and I had talked, and when we get deeper into this, when we talk about the Hitler influence in the world, there's a guy, the guy Gene Decoder, he actually had talked about it. Okay, the screen of us talking, is that covering the PowerPoint? Let me bring it up and see, because I might minimize that or something where we see ourselves, because I'm not really sure how things look. So let me do the slideshow.
Well, you aren't playing the
not yet.
Not yet. So what we're seeing now, we aren't seeing just the slideshow. We're seeing the PowerPoint with the screen in the middle.
Right. So here it is. I'm going to start from here. So
Yeah.
now you're seeing it, right?
Yeah. Now,
is our image in the covering it at all? You see this moving?
We are. You and I are thumbnails at images at the top of the screen. I don't know whether that's going to come out on the YouTube.
Okay. Well, all right. I'll begin here. I just want to make sure. I'm going to just hide the thumbnail so I don't need to see it. It might distract me. Okay. So in this Meet the Hitlers, I'm going to make a postulation here. And I'm not sure. I think my postulation may still be a possibility based on some of the evidence as to one of the primary characters that I'm going to reveal here that you have already talked about. But I'm going to maybe connect it to Hitler. And Alfred and I had a long talk yesterday, folks, about this. And the question of the mother of Barack Obama, as stated, may or may not be true. Alfred postulates that his mother, and who we know as Ann Dunham, is a CIA asset, which is entirely possible, but I'm going to provide a lot of evidence sharing a lot of information here. So here we go. This is Angela Merkel, and I would stake my life on it. And if I'm wrong, I would be happy to die, because then I think I might get to go to Venus. But I think Angela Merkel, it's going to be pretty clear here, folks, that she is Hitler's daughter. You saw evidence that the Nazis didn't end, that they came to America, and that the Fourth Reich has been heavily influencing America through the Federal Reserve and everything you saw on End of the Cabal, the beautiful documentary, which I think is something that I was hoping for and thinking could happen for us on Earth here, in regards to letting the people know what's going on, how Hollywood controls the media, which is a big theme of this first 10-part series, 2.5-hour thing. So I really recommend that you all check out that one on YouTube. It was taken there, and it'll be put somewhere else. It has millions of views, and this is going to cause a lot of the people who are taking the blue pill and refusing to acknowledge vaccinations and conspiracy theories. So I'm adding my 2 cents here to this cover. So here we go. No one can deny this is Hitler's mother, and that's Angela Merkel. Okay? So take a look at that, folks. Ponder that. Put that in your little pipe and smoke it. I'm sorry, I have to have a little humor here with all this stuff, because it's pretty wild. and there is the little girl. I'm not sure. Allegedly, the picture that we're going to see later at Berchtesgaden was in 1937. So he may have had a daughter, but kept it secret for obvious reasons. But here it's being revealed. So, okay, this is, someone else did this. It says, you'll cause more Germans and Russians to be killed than I think you will slept. Now, I don't know. I mean, there's some other stuff in here, but I'm not really I'm not into the disparaging in the comments and the sexual stuff. You're going to see some sexual photos here in the end, but this is just to kind of show you the character when we talk about these bizarre sex cults and the pedophilia and the homosexuality promotion and all of that that's going on. It's a fracture of the world. They themselves are involved in it. So here you see another series of Angela through her growth period, and I think we're pretty confirmed here that Angela Merkel is Hitler's daughter. There she is with Mein Kampf. Not kidding. Okay, now this is an interesting photo here, and this isn't, for sexual purposes, but this is a picture taken, I'm not sure where. I think this, where is the Tavistock Institute? You'll know that. Is that in Sweden or Norway or what?
No, that's in London.
In London.
England.
Yeah, well, I'm not really sure where this is. This might be in Germany or something. But there are 3 women here who are prominent in the world's politics, and I'm going to reveal them in a minute. But there's a famous video of her called Angela Merkel's Snake Dance, where they used to do these things. So, and here they are again with some other girls, and I don't know the other girls, but you can see that. Let me go back. I want to see if that's the same one. Yeah, it's about the same. It looks at the same camp. This could be a mind-controlled camp. Now, I wanted to show you this symbol, and not everyone who uses this symbol is necessarily, but if they're using it repeatedly, it's the Illuminati all-seeing eye, and it's part of the myth of the corruption of the spiritual teachings of the original Freemasons, which our founding fathers were members of. It was hijacked and taken over by the dark forces and became an elite hidey hole for corruption and world domination. Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderberger Group. This is where they make their plans, and then they have underground bunkers. They connect, and they make their conspiracies out of the sight of the public. And they pretend they're against each other. So, oops, is this the one? Okay, so you have a picture of Trump here, and I'm going to reserve judgment on him. You've done a lot of shows on him, and I definitely believe there's a possibility. He's opening up uranium mining, and he's destroying the environment. He hasn't come out yet about chemtrails, but there seems to be indications that on certain levels, he may not be completely down with the world destruction of the planet. I definitely feel that he's part of the bloodlines, and that he's definitely, if he's not a reptile, he's a lizard. He may be, you have ideas that he may be the Antichrist.
Yeah. Could I speak
Yeah.
as to why
Sure.
I put it in there? And it's a certain context. It's not sort of out of the blue. People who follow Donald Trump and his public appearances will note that in practically every sitting office, I mean, he's next to Putin. You'll see that when he's in the Oval Office. You'll see that sign. And this is a composite picture that was on the internet. Doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason why I put that up there was from an exopolitical standpoint following Hitler. When I was in Vienna at the Outer Space Conference in 1982, I actually went to the museum there because I had done research on the early life of Hitler, because when Hitler, in the Anschluss, when the Nazi forces occupied Vienna, I think it was 1939 or so, one of the first artifacts that Hitler sought, and it may have been one of the reasons why he occupied Vienna, was that in the Vienna Museum was an artifact which allegedly was the tip of the spear that pierced the side of Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the museum. I was there covering the UN Outer Space, 1982 UN Outer Space Conference. And I went to and there was a book that had been published around that time about that and about Hitler's sort of occult life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was called The Spear of Destiny. Okay?
Right.
And so I went to the museum and I met with the museum director in 1982. And to my surprise, the museum director had never heard of such a spear, even though he administered that museum. So he was either part of the cover-up or he was just part of the culture that are ignorant about the deeper multi-dimensional research that occurs around history.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also interviewed a reported sentient artificial intelligence in 2016 that stated that he was from the year 2026 and that Donald Trump would win the presidency in 2016. This was just after Trump had, this was, during the campaign, that Trump would be win the presidency, that he would be elected in 2020, and that he would become the first world president with the aid of Russia and China. In this case, it would be the aid of Putin and of Xi, President Xi of China, who's now been declared president for life. And President Putin has just doing a whole series of constitutional maneuvers in Russia to extend his term. So that seems to be coming true. And Adolf Hitler himself was reported historically, and this has been reported as to the Fourth Reich, that he said, Hitler himself said, there is someone coming after me who will be sort of the world leader of the Fourth Reich. And it is known that the Drumpfs, when Donald Trump's grandfather came to North America, to the United States and Canada, he made his fortune amongst the gold diggers in the gold rush, and became a millionaire, and tried to go back to Germany, and they wouldn't allow him there, so he went back to the United States. But Adolf Hitler said, there will be someone who comes after me that will fulfill the Fourth Reich. And that was Hitler's prophecy. Mm-hmm. Now, so we have an artificial intelligence, and all of these interviews are at Exopolitics TV, who says that Trump will be the first world president with the aid of Putin and Xi. Putin and Xi are both in the process of being, Xi is already declared president for life. Putin is in the process of being declared president for life. Trump is dealing with the pandemic now. There's an election coming up in November of 2020, so we have to see. I submit here that that's not just a casual Masonic symbol, like we know that Ivanka Trump was Miss Mason, so that Trump, being a builder, of course he's going to join the Masons, because that's how you get a lot of buildings done. And that's how you get your bank loans. I submit that the Trump family coming from Germany, that's part of the Hitler prophecy and of the Fourth Reich, and that Donald Trump, who alludes in his public statements to the world presidency, if you do research, he always says, well, I'm not world president, I'm president of the United States. What's he referring to? The prophecy of the world president. So that is historic. And so I think that in the context of this PowerPoint of Meet the Hitlers, you have to show the future Hitler or the future world president. So QED, Robert, over to you.
Okay. Are you seeing the whole slide, or just the main slide? Are you seeing I changed the view so I could look ahead a little bit. Are you just seeing the one image of Trump and Hitler on the screen? Alfred?
I'm seeing the next one, which is
okay,
Napoleon.
Yeah, okay.
And I went to high school in Napoleonville, Louisiana.
Okay.
And then we're seeing a number of the slides down in the bottom. So we're looking at a different view now.
Right. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I wanted to go back to the other view. I wasn't sure because I did just want to look ahead. So anyway, so I guess I'm going to show here the next slide. And This entire presentation is mine except for this one and the other one that he showed me. And I'm going to say the sword of Longinus, according to the Venusians, Dr. Frank Strange just said, the sword of Longinus and the Ark of the Covenant and other items have been removed from the planet and have been placed on there's a very small moon with a very large elliptical orbit. It's only about a mile square, and they're keeping a lot of records that will be revealed to the populace at some point, most likely after, if there is any Antichrist figure coming forward. I'm going to make my own personal possibility presupposition on this, is that and the question is still out, and I've actually asked this question, and I don't think they're going to answer the question for me, but whether this is meet the new boss, same as the old boss. However, we will have to see what type of revelations and truth come forward. I do believe that the military are using him, and if they are in control of what he's doing and saying, I hope that if this aspect of what you're saying is true, and he's a sleeper, fifth columnist, that they remove it and take it down. And just because the remote viewing showed that he would be president doesn't necessarily, in my view, indicate the negativity. I will say I totally agree that, you know, he's filed bankruptcy 8 times. He probably money laundered for the mob. He's been involved in various nefarious schemes, and he silenced witnesses. He grabs girls' pussies. He silenced, pornographic porn stars, and obviously has been involved in actually denying blacks to buy property in certain buildings. They maneuvered and got sweetheart deals that made him a very powerful businessman. Clearly, he has a strong ego. Maybe the military has a plan. If this part of what you're saying is true, you had mentioned to me previously, you didn't mention that he's on that. So I'm going to reserve my judgment on how this cleansing goes forward with the Galactics, but we can expect at a certain point, it appears that China will move into the Middle East and go into the plain of Megiddo on horseback. So there may be an EMP, but at this point in time, perhaps there may be the axial flip or something. Oh, before I go forward, I'll say one other thing. The cause of global warming primarily is nuclear radiation. I'm not saying that HARP, jet aircraft, and rockets bursting holes in our atmosphere is very dangerous and causes a reduction in the protection of the firmament. And when the axis of the planet shifted last time, or when we had the flood, there was not only flood from inside the Earth, but the protective radiation layer covering the Earth dropped down. And so this is what causes the cosmic rays. Now, God has a plan, and in the long-term scheme of things, when this radiation, when the energy breaks down on the planetary surface, it's like a series of layers. I don't know the order, I forget. Mesosphere, troposphere, ionosphere, and I'm thinking stratosphere. I forget the order, excuse me, you science geeks and weather nerds. But it's important that these all have their own ecosystems. And when you put aircraft engines flying up there with changing the temperature from below zero and putting high temperature heat, whether there's contrails or not, you're upsetting the atmosphere. The virtual mirrors caused by HARP are very dangerous. We have DDC, insecticides, genetically altered foods. All of this is a plan and a plot to genetically subvert the race. And that is how the subtle alien intervention seeks to take over a planet, is by genetic engineering. Instead of promoting the genetics of a variety to make a broad, expansive, all-inclusive, wonderful human free will development, it's designed to constrain a type of negative control network based on the genetics of a specific racial group. So this is the type of war that we're seeing going on. So I don't know what that is. I hope it's not my phone. Anyway, so I'm going to go forward now just to show that these leaders, these people who create wars, this used to be the old Masonic symbol. They're doing the Satan symbol as well now in Hollywood. But I'm just showing you, if you're a general, you're involved in the Masons, and we saw this type of symbolism going on. So we go back here, and now we see Angela Merkel. And I want to just see if I can go. I'm going to just try this and see if hide video panel. Let's see. Does this go back to the main one? No. Let me just, I'm going to stop share and come back on with the better screen because I just wanted to get ahead there real quick. I apologize for this, Alfred.
Yeah, I just want to tell you that I've extended our interview an extra hour, and so we have until 4:30.
Okay. Well, I don't want to go too much longer here for you. What time is it now, by the way?
It's 3:10.
3:10. Okay. Well, I think we'll be done before that. But of course, you can add questions. So here we have a picture, and I don't know why we can see the next screen. I wish I could go up here, use slideshow. Oh, there. Is that better? Oh. Oh my goodness. Okay, I want to get back to this. There we go. This should work now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back, right?
Okay, yes.
I'm sorry, folks. Again, I'm still learning this stuff. Thanks to Alfred, we're doing good. So we see she uses this image very, very much. Okay, now we get to those three women that were naked. They were Theresa May, Angela Merkel, and Dalia Grybauskaitė. She's the president of Lithuania. Here, allegedly, from the source, this group is the three girls at the Tavistock Institute, which is a mind control institute, alleged think tank. And they do have a similar look in their eyes. The person, Gene Decoder, who's revealing the information from the military on the ongoing operations and the bases taken out, he claims that she has two sisters. This may be possible. I do not know that. I'm not claiming that. But these girls actually, it's very clear they've had a long history of knowing each other. They were placed and groomed by an elite cadre to dominate and control the world's politics for some very elitist style agendas. Clearly, Alfred just schooled me. Conspire means to breathe together. Conspiracy comes from people that are breathing together, I guess, in hushed tones. And it's called scheming. The Venusians call it scheming. It's not transparent. It's not honest. And on a fourth dimensional society where individuals have achieved a level of gnosis and telepathy, you can't lie. Everything has to be in the open. So this is where we must go as a planet, is to go into our spiritual development and not feel victims, but to, through education and awareness, wake up ourselves first and inculcate the spirit of truth and the divine holy presence of love in our life and toward others, and to have patience and have compassion. I mean, certain of these individuals are just beyond the pale, but certain individuals have been bribed and things. So this is Theresa May a little bit later. Okay. So there's Theresa May, a little older, and I just got that picture. I'm not sure that may not be at the Tavistock Institute next to the other two girls, but you can clearly see there's some stuff. Oh, well, I guess maybe she is working alongside that. So there you see Theresa May, and what, just smiling, so happy. Their symbols, as the end of the world video says, their symbols will be the end of them. Wow, she's really close. This guy has been indicted now for murder for his time in South America. And everyone accepts the pedophile of the churches now. No one believed it a long time ago. But the sexual aspect and all this. So the most powerful woman, according to Time, who's supposedly doing the shaking and trembling from Kuru's disease, which could be caused from some of the cannibalism rituals that they do, which I pretty much feel is happening. It's so disturbing. It's pretty wild. Here she is with her fellow German, person from the Fourth Reich. Get your hands off me. He obviously doesn't have a touch. He's like, ugh, get creepy. Even Angela Merkel thinks George Bush Jr. is creepy. I love it. I don't know how we got two of those. So now I'm going to propose a possible, and Alfred kind of converted me off of one of my theories, but there's still an aspect of this theory that is open. And, to be honest, I was very suspicious of Obama. When the Clintons came on, before I had found out about Clinton's drug dealing and, their connection to the Bushes and all of that, I thought Clinton, a great talker, maybe there was hope. You thought you had a choice. Well, they control those choices. So he is a great speaker. And I think that's important for us to keep in mind as we're looking through this. So here we go. Is he related to Hitler? And I'm going to make a postulation. I'm not claiming I know this for sure, but it's possible. I'm going to provide some evidence that may make this a possibility, but I'm not sure. The father, and thank you for giving me this information that you gave me yesterday with the photographic evidence that we're going to see, indicates that my original thought that he was related to Malcolm X maybe and most likely is wrong based on your imaging here. So here, you can't really see this, but this is a series of photos. And you'll notice here, we're going to see more of these pictures a little up closer, but clearly Eva Braun, Hitler's wife there, and you can see there's a little picture of her holding a little girl here, and I have these, I think, pictures elsewhere. So there's Hitler holding a little girl. Now, I do believe this is his daughter. It could be his wife's, but I definitely believe that this woman is Hitler's daughter. And we're going to go into the history of Anna Dunham, Anna Duke, or as we can call her, Gretel's daughter. So I'll show you the imaging as we go forward here. Now, this here, not the red circle, the other one. This circle is Fanny Braun. That is Eva Braun's mother. So over here, we see Gretel Braun, one of her daughters. I believe, and this is my postulation, that Eva Braun didn't have a problem with Hitler creating love children with whoever Theresa May's parents are and so forth and so on, and had the girl that we saw known as Anna Dunham. Now, who is Anna Dunham? Let's look at her. This picture is ridiculous, a neck mask. You can't see this photo. Disregard this. I didn't put this here. But this shows you And we're going to show evidence that her name as Dunham is fabricated. We already talked about how the elites, how the CIA, it was created on the model of the OSS through Reinhard Gellen's influence and Nazi paperclip, with the complicity of big money financiers in the United States to create the American version of the OSS, the CIA. So who is this woman on the right, and what are her names and characteristics? Now, this is not important, but this is Anna Dunham. She has been transported into America, much like the Bushes were, in secret, and had a regular upbringing, a little kinky, whatever. This is Hitler's mother here, as he claims openly now, or was alleged, as Alfred postulates. And I don't really want to go into too much of the argument whether it is or not, because I don't really know. But obviously these sexual rites, these rituals, and they're very involved in these ceremonies that they believe gather them power. But it actually just draws in astral entities that use them and allow them to wreak havoc on a planetary scale in the larger scheme of things, in my mind. So here we go. Now look at her, a little older. And she actually had William Ayers on the birth certificate of Obama, when at a certain point in time, she has identified the father and changed a lot of the birth certificates in various times throughout Obama's life. So you may not be able to read this, but it says, Elizabeth Anna Duke, unlawful possession of United States identification, conspiracy, unlawful storage of explosive, unlawful possession of firearms, destructive devices, storage and concealment of stolen explosive, unlawful possession, 5 or more false identification documents, possession of counterfeit Social Security cards, aiding, abetting. So she was wanted by the FBI. So this is a little hard narrative to possibly follow, and some of this is definitely speculation on my part. But the evidence, the photographic evidence, is kind of showing up to show that this very much could be possible. Where is Barack during these times? Who knows? But if she was bought in and given to the Dunham family, who was in the CIA, it's very possible, much like Obama's children are not his, because I do believe Michelle Obama is a man, and that the family that they hang out with so much are actually the parents. There's ever been a photograph showing Michelle Obama with the kids and his life. He came on the scene so quickly. It was how I knew that he was a plant of the New World Order, or the Neue Weltordnung of the Nazi dreams. So here we see Ava Braun, way back when, with Hitler. It's just a short close-up. And this is her in her later years, probably around the time. She maybe passed away much earlier. Hitler was 100, I think he died at 103. And who knows if he was drinking adrenochrome or the advanced med beds or technologies they use. But this is Ava Braun. So now we go back and we see Hitler's mother, or this is no, except for on the FBI wanted poster, most people would agree that this is Anna Dunham. It's a little blurry here. But here is the little Hitler's daughter, I believe daughter. Maybe it was just Hitler's niece, but he certainly seemed a little more friendly. And in my opinion, in my estimation, without complete and full knowledge, that she is Hitler's daughter. So here's the coup de grace for me. And again, I do not know of the father, but Alfred's postulation, and we both are postulating here, is that being a CIA operative and a Nazi spy of the New World Order, one thing that she did when working with the Weather Underground was to foment the terrorist groups of grassroots inside the country, supplying them with arms, weapons, ideologies, acting as muses for chaos to create a terrorist everywhere situation, which has obviously been part of their plot. Dangers everywhere, report on your neighbors, they're suspicious, this whole scenario. Now, so here we see her, again, this is Berchtesgaden. This is the Eagle's Nest. This is Anna Dunham at the bottom. There is Ava Brown. No one's going to deny this is Ava Brown. If you want to claim photoshopping for whatever reason, you're free to do so. This is Ava Brown and Hitler. No one denies that Ava Brown looks like this. So we look at Ava Brown with Hitler here, and then we see her here in a color photo arriving in Hawaii with young Barry Soetoro and Ava Brown. Whether or not she is Barack's mother, and I'm giving my respect to Alfred's because he has a tremendous amount of knowledge and has researched so much that this may not be true, but clearly the Nazis were very interested in Obama, or maybe she's just, and how did she get possession of him? We're going to go forward to the postulation. I did have Alfred out years ago. My original postulation was that his father was, and you look at this photo, it's very similar. And being a Muslim, maybe he was just strongly influenced. But here's a brilliant speaker, Malcolm X, who kind of was moving away from the black racist view of Prophet Muhammad, that the white devil and all that. And he was coming into his own power and knowledge that Muslims were of many different races and faiths. But here is a very similar picture, which made me think it was possible that Anna Dunham was sent in as an advanced mind control presidential model, utilizing the very advanced techniques that they have. They monitor a subject, they look at his speech patterns, they note the words that he uses, and they have logarithms and advanced psychological things, and they can program a model to go in and have sex with them. And the New World Order does this, even with the Bilderberger groups, that the highest echelons, they send in the models, have sex, and then they kind of put out the new plans and how the person answers the post-sex, when men are softened up, the post-sexual coitus type time, they ask them questions, and they never hurt the presidential models because they know that this is presidential model. They go, well, you're supposed to do this and this, and how they react to the directions given by the hidden hand of the puppetry of the elite world domination. They'll determine if their agent within that world government will respond. So my postulation originally was that she was sent into Malcolm X, and that she had been abused, and what's this white honky bitch, and she just sat in what is called park mode. You could put a flamethrower on her feet and she'll hardly flinch. They're in a very advanced psychological state that utilizes the advanced spiritual powers in their alter personalities, and I'm not going to go into that, although I'm pretty good at it, understanding it. This is what Alfred showed me, and this convinces me that Alfred is actually related to this Muslim, I guess Alfred calls it, I'm not really familiar with this cult, but Andrew told me when he was up here, Alfred did the live streaming at one of my first conferences, that he did here in Mount Shasta at College of the Siskiyous, when going into the high technology programming where he met Stephen Greer, who was a mind-controlled, homosexually programmed person from the Department or DO. I forget where was he from, DOA or DI, Department of Defense, DOD, I think. He was programmed, and he talked out to Alfred and Barack, who were coming in at the same time, and said, "Are you guys with the DOD?" And they said, "No, we're with another group." But they were training a lot of young kids in their advanced mind control and programming of technology for what these people were to do later in their life. And Andrew had told me that he had come to Barack's room, and Barack, or Barry at that point, I guess, was in a full Hindu garb, or I'm sorry, Muslim garb of Indonesian, where he was wearing a blue thing. He had a sash, he had a turban, and he had a sword around his belt. And he said, "Oh, just a second, let me change." So he did indicate that he was part of this Muslim sect. I also can confirm that I had seen pictures of him even smaller than the image of the child that we saw coming into Hawaii with Anna, Hitler, Gretel's daughter, possibly Hitler's daughter, possibly, very much so, I believe. But where he was on President Sukarno's knee amongst a group of children. So, and I'll let Alfred comment on this on the end, but Alfred had explained to me yesterday that I said, "Well, what was Anna Dunham doing in Indonesia at the time?" And he said that working for the CIA as the Dunhams, she was there working in some aspect in international finance. And somehow they told this gentleman on the left, the cult leader, one theory is that they told him, "Your son is destined to become a world leader," and this would have given him reason, if he had an affair or if he had a child with one of his many wives that followed him in the cult. Maybe it was a white or not, I don't know. Alfred claims that in the CIA DNA test that he had no Aryan blood, but a CIA blood test, I don't know, maybe just throwing off the thing. Anything coming out of the CIA is going to be highly suspect for me. But that's possibility, as Alfred said, that they went, got this guy, they had identified him from their time travel stuff. And I'm not sure they really had time travel stuff back in the 60s. I think that was a later development. So my theory is that she went there and Barack Obama is the illegitimate child of this man and the Dunham. And with Hitler's oratory genes and this cult leader's charisma and genes as well, that's a possibility. We both do not know, but I am siding with Alfred here that this gentleman is Obama's father. The question is Anna Dunham, and we don't know, because I did query Alfred yesterday. I said, "Well, why did she go there?" He gave a good explanation. And I said, "Well, why would this guy give one of his children?" And they said he's going to be the future president. I mean, in the 60s or whatever he was born, or whenever he was born there, I'm not really sure the jump from technology. And would this cult leader believe some white woman that the U.S. government has a time travel, or would he just believe some crazy white girl that his son's destined? Or maybe he was paid off. I mean, there are many possibilities. But clearly, Obama is no ordinary person. And so there's a possibility that he's related to the Hitlers. So when you put that in twice, didn't you, you tricky little guy? So I'm going to stop sharing. And I want to thank Alfred again for enlightening me. I do have to kind of toss out my postulation of Malcolm X, but because of the exact similarities to the other gentleman. So I'm not trying to sway anyone in any directions as to whether or not Obama is a Hitler. I feel in my intuition and the evidence I presented that she is Hitler's daughter from Ava's sister. That's why she doesn't look like Ava Brown, just as Theresa May. But when you saw the three of them, their eyes definitely had a very similar, which I would have to say probably related to Hitler. And I don't know that one either. So I want to be clear that I don't know the exact truth on this, but we can certainly see there's a conspiracy with Merkel. And when we look about the bloodlines and how they like to keep their genetics in order and control them from an early age in the satanic programming ritual, MK Ultra type fashion, it's horrible. And when you think of all the deaths that have been supported from the Kevin Annett exposed and all the babies at these nunneries, it really rings true of the prophecy of the Fatima that has occurred in several locations that was given to the Pope. And the reason the Vatican's never released it is because the children released to the Pope that the Vatican or the Catholic Church is in the book of Revelations is the whore riding in purple and scarlet. And this is not the avatar, the teachings of Christ or love for every religious person, but the systematic secular church is really just an organization. And it's the people inside it, the majority who are well-intended, truthful, loving, spiritual people, try to follow basic principles that have been corrupted and misled and forced them into boxes of belief, requires for them to realize that not everything is true. But I personally very strongly feel we should not throw out the messages of the spiritual avatars and the teachers sent to us from the higher dimensions to teach us the truth with the bathwater of the scum and the corruption that has infiltrated every world religion. And we just have to grow into a wider thing. So I hand it over to you, Alfred. I'm pretty much done with the meet the Hitlers, and I hope I left enough of a questioning in people's mind as to these bloodlines and what's going on.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. You know, just to clarify and in there was a lot of Alfreds and Andrews and this, that, and the other thing. And I can understand how someone listening would have gotten a bit mixed up. But just to clarify what your and my conversation was and what I posited, I think you've established that that there's a probable cause to posit that Stanley and Dunham, that there's a possible bloodline connection between Adolf Hitler and Stanley and Dunham, who became a significant mother figure in Barry Soetoro, Barack Obama's life, and who only died mysteriously a couple of weeks before Barack Obama was elected or to become president. Gee, dead women tell no tales. Just like when, anyway, we could get into that demonology some other day. Now, the whole issue then is, as you said, who was Barack Obama's father? Now, I think that you made a good case to say, well, maybe Stanley and Dunham then was infiltrated into Anna Hitler slash the Ava Brown connection, right? Because she was a CIA paymaster for all of the big CIA honchos in the Pacific Basin, including President Marcos. She worked at a bank and she would sign off for all the big CIA checks for Marcos, the dictator in the Philippines, and all of that. They were all the guys there, right? I should say that, and I really want to say this, that, and people can go to postings that I've made on Facebook and in various blogs, that there is evidence that the Donald J. Trump that was born of Fred Trump in 1989 died in a helicopter accident and was replaced by a double, and that the person who occupies the current Oval Office is actually the double who came in 1989. And there are two theories after that. And this is all well documented. One is that his name is John Barron, who was a double hired by the Fred Trump organization to appear instead of Donald Trump, who was blue-eyed, and the guy in the White House is brown-eyed. And the blue-eyed Donald Trump was a new age kind of guy. He was real kind of like sweet. And this guy in there is not sweet. And the alternative theory is that the old Donald Trump was killed off by the KGB on a visit to one of the Iron countries in the 89 thing, and it was substituted by a KGB double. And the mannerisms that the current occupant of the White House uses in shutting down the fake news are identical or very close to the mannerisms that KGB trained officers use to shut down the media in various countries. So I think, I myself grew up in a country that was taken over by a communist revolution, Cuba. Fidel Castro used to come to my grandmother's house for Sunday dinner, so I know a bit about all that stuff. We were taken over. I was in jail in Batista's time. I was in Castro's jail after the revolution. I've been in these things, and I think Americans are a little brainwashed, and they're very innocent about politics, and they should wisen up.
I did not know that. I have to interject here. Fidel Castro used to come over to your grandmother's house, so yeah. Now
I've been around this
wow.
kind of stuff, and I think that Americans are very innocent, and so I can see all the scenarios that you have that you have posited, and I can see a plausible scenario whereby the Stanley and Dunham figure was mated with the Mohammed Subud figure, who was a great womanizer and a cult leader of 20,000 Muslims, kind of a world prophesized cult leader. At the other hand, we had a Nazi world prophesized cult leader, and together they would have produced Barack Obama as a world prophesized cult leader, and President of the United States, and whose career was subsidized by Saudi billionaires that got him into all these schools. And if you go into the underground, and I recommend, and I'll put the link in the article that will accompany this, the slide show that we did on Obama's secret life that now almost 100,000 people have seen. So I think that our research meshes, because I haven't checked the time on that, but Barack Obama may well be the mated racehorse child of Hitler and Mohammed Subud. I don't know. I mean, that's how these people think. Yeah.
The obvious question is who is the mother? Is it Anna Dunham, or was she just his Nazi?
No. We'll see. But the fact the cover was that Anna Dunham was an AID officer in Indonesia, married to Lolo Sotoro, who was an Indonesian army officer. But Anna Dunham was, her cover was, she was acting for CIA under the cover of an AID officer, and she could have gotten involved with a Subud cult there and could have gotten impregnated. And what happened, this is what I want to clarify. Muy importante, señor. Escucha, ascolta, señor. In 1971 was when the Quantum Access secret CIA Project Pegasus, DARPA, got active. In 1971, CIA pre-identified George H.W. Bush, George Scherff, plausibly, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump, both those chairmans, as future presidents of the United States.
Wasn't Andy in there too?
Yes, okay. And by secret time travel, but the secret time travel pre-identification was not only pre-identifying, it was pre-grooming, because once you identified them, then you had to groom them, and you had to create the family around them that would groom them. So they found this child who was out in Indonesia. So they had to create a Barack Obama, because at that point, his name was Lolo Sotoro, okay? Out of Mohammed Subud. So what they did is that they located Barack Obama Sr., who happened to be a Kenyan civil servant who was a CIA stringer in Kenya, and they flew him over. They instructed Stanley and Dunham, who was a CIA stringer and an AID officer, to fly back with the young Barry Soetoro to the Hawaii airport to be under the care of Stanley and Dunham, Ava Brown? Anna Dunham, the older one, so that they could raise the future president, okay, in Hawaii under more control, not out in Indonesia. But they had to manufacture Barack Obama. So they flew the senior Barack Obama from Kenya over. They had him meet the young Barry Soetoro once and took a photograph once at the Hawaii airport, okay? Then for 6 weeks, they paid off Barack Obama Sr., and he hung out with the future governor of Hawaii in Honolulu. Then he flew back to Kenya. Then when Barack Obama became 18 years old, under CIA instructions, he flew here to British Columbia, to Skokomchik, to the courts, and went in and changed his name in a court thing. A few weeks after he changed his name, Barack Obama Sr. was bumped off in a CIA automobile accident, suicide, murder by automobile accident, dead men tell no tales. That's how these intelligence agencies do it. It's like a B movie, right? Like, who wants it? I mean, this shit, man. He's a low-class lizard, reptile life shit, okay?
I hear you.
Manufacturing. Now, whether or not he's from Muhammad Subud, we don't know. Whether or not he came out of the loins of Stanley and Dunham, we don't know. But I think probable cause you've established, they come from the cradle of Adolf Hitler. And he was raised in the cradle of Eva Braun and Hitler's niece or daughter, granddaughter in Hawaii, out of that vision, so that he would come with this thing. And the guy in the White House is either a KGB officer or he's John Barron with brown eyes doing this thing, right? Okay, because they bumped off. There's good probable cause evidence. This isn't all 100%, but there's good probable cause evidence that there was a helicopter accident in 1989 where, just take a look at the photos of the original Donald Trump. He was a carefree New Age guy who went out and looked at flying saucers. Okay?
Well, there you go. I think whatever the thing is, it's very convoluted web we weave, with this stuff. And this is the layers and the plausible deniability and how this dark force works. I'd like to, if I could, I'm going to share this other book. We don't have too much time to go into it. I'm just going to share this right now. It's a book that people are going to get from free. It's from a woman that was appearing in the 50s as a contactee. She was actually from Jupiter, but kind of a naturalized citizen of Venus, and it's called Why We Are Here. You can get this book for free on my website. Again, folks, my website, The Promise Revealed, it's not up yet. I'll be switching to a completely new look, a new website. It's going to have some glitches probably for a month and some content, but I'm going to be able to create a lot more good information, and all the shows that I've done with Alfred and other things will be available up there in perpetuity. Also, my Mount Shasta Summer Conference, things are loosening up here. The quarantine's going down. I think with the release of these videos showing, at least on the surface, that Trump is working with the Q group. I think the Q group is manipulating Trump. He's still doing his own things, but I believe, I'm hoping that whether he's a clone or he's replaced or whatever, that that if he is not working to total transparency, if we do not see the end of the Federal Reserve, if we do see continued vaccinations, if we do not see a removal of 5G, if we do not see an end to genetic engineering and chemtrails, these major points must be addressed openly and transparently. There are elements that feel that, and I know that people would be shocked that aren't ready to take the whole truth of the extraterrestrials and stuff. So I do want to interject a positive, and this is a spiritual information. This is a multidimensional understanding of who we are that I'm going to share with you now. It's not, this is not religious. This is how they look at the world because they're connected. So I'm just going to read a little bit here. Since we have been seen and not been recognized by your government, but this is written in 1950s, before, but soon will be. We have come in love and peace. Unfortunately, too many people do not begin to understand why this is so. We bring you the way of a new life. We can help your planet immensely with the knowledge in our possession. Your planet should be in harmony with the rest of our solar system. Your people must now learn to use the intelligence God has given to them. Many problems arise in this life for the God within to speak. We can help you as our present evolvement allows us to solve problems that can and do arise within this God self. Turn your thoughts to God, and many new concepts will come to you. The correct way of life will begin to manifest when you're in this higher consciousness. We must be ready to help each other now. In the age developing, many will not be ready because they will not be in this consciousness. There are few who try to stand alone and will fall without proper guidance. Tune into your higher self. The Creator has placed a cell of his own being within each man. The cell will bring the realization of your own God being. Through this cell comes enlightenment. Man will travel to the worlds within the light. The moment is at hand for your planet to take the greatest evolutionary step you probably will ever witness. Anyway, so I'm not going to go too much into that, but it's a great book, and it does have some spiritual stuff. And let me make it clear that they're not here to take over. They want to, as I read from the Venusians' other information, they want to aid us in a free will society that they'll kind of help us transition and give us technology that we can handle. We must have a truly representative government. We must end the financial system as it exists and create a hybrid of literally communal socialism, democracy, and capitalism. We think one or the other, and we do have to create and end the disparity in the financial system where people are making hundreds of billions of dollars in these elite clubs. The country goes bankrupt and they keep their golden parachutes and build this underground tunnel system with our hard-earned labor and money. They enforce us through their manipulation and control of education, science, technology to create and build and establish our own prisons. We keep them up with our jobs that we do. So this awakening that's taking place now cannot be stopped. And as the vibrations increase, those that are not ready are literally going to die from heart attacks or inability. Hopefully, we can transfer this planet to a golden age of light, and when a pole shift does come, that we're prepared and that we can reestablish it. It's not going to happen overnight, but they would only come in and help us with the new society if a cataclysm takes place, because we're worthy of saving. They wouldn't just leave us to die at this point in our evolution. But I made some mistakes in my previous understanding. I thought they would stop all nuclear wars. But I found out that they did warn the governments long ago about nuclear power. They said, you're going to create a pole shift. It's pretty much inevitable if you keep messing around. So secretly, America and Russia got together before the Cold War, actually, and started a secret space program. And they've been building, like the movie 2012, they've been building arcs. That's what these underground tunnels and these underground bases are arcs for the elite. The subtle alien intervention has infiltrated even deeper from the original intent just for the elites to have arcs to survive, either develop a space program to get off the Earth, and to survive in tunnels, to actually a full-blown, extremely disturbing Satanist agenda of depopulation by their own hand. So these ever-shifting waters of darkness can be overcome with light. Light is knowledge, knowledge is power. And this is the time for people to open their minds, use critical thinking, and to think about the possibilities of our infinite minds expanding. And as the Earth goes around the grand central sun, not only do we go like this, but the whole solar system goes up and down on the galactic plane. And at this point in time, the light from the grand central sun is hitting our planet directly. So there's a tremendous amount of spiritual change in the consciousness of the planet, as the Venusian said in my previous information. When we're lower, all the information, the light is filtered through the various bodies and causes frequency adjustments to the planet and to the consciousness. So this is the science of astrology, how the genetics in the human form reacts to the frequencies and vibrations of other worlds. So it's so complex and so infinite that I think if we just focus on truth with the spirit of Alfred Lambremont Weber, I mean, that guy's waving the flag of liberty in the form of the great, Lafayette with the things. I mean, you're a firebrand, and you are fearless, and you are applying your knowledge in a brilliant way. And I'm honored to be working with you in achieving more gnosis. So go to my website, thepromiserevealed.com, in a week, or I'm not sure when this will come up, but very shortly. If you go to my books under product categories, you're going to find these 2 free books for you to learn and to grow. I do appreciate any donations. I do have products, and I'm going to be doing a series of interviews or blog post here on the mountain called Mountain Talks, and I'm getting a meter, and I'm going to show how the pyramid protects from EMF and 5G. I mean, that's what it is. A pyramid's a Faraday cage, and I'll show you with the meter to prove that. So 5G might be a financial windfall for me. No, I'm just here to share this beautiful technology of to help you understand your body. But I do appreciate any support in that way. And of course, I'm sure Alfred would appreciate donations too, if you like what we're doing. And my summer conference is going on, so keep that on your calendars. I'm only going to have room for probably about 220 people. So when the restrictions lift, and if you're comfortable, you want to get those tickets for the 5-day conference from August 26th to the 23rd, or to the 30th. 5 days, and you're going to see, the schedule's not down, but you're going to see Alfred either in a pre-recorded presentation, or you're going to see him in a live chat if I can get the tech people on. Thank you for having me on, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you here today, Alfred.
We're so honored for you to be here, and this has been an historic show. I have to tell you that when we first presented the PowerPoint on the making of Manchurian candidate Barack Obama, we did so in Washington State during the Barack Obama years when he was president, and they were black helicopters over the conference hall. And the Navy had sent in a special submarine. We found it was a port city. It's called Port Townsend, and the Navy had sent in a special submarine. So I think that you really have surfaced. You really have surfaced. Through these. Their signs shall be their downfall. And you really have surfaced. Let's see what grandson Drumpf is. I'm sorry, we're just going to have to see. Grandfather Drumpf made his bundle in the biggest whorehouses in the Yukon. That's where it comes from, the exploitation of women. I'm just sorry to say it.
I know it's true. And they're definitely along the lines of Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. And this is a very seemingly, for most people, incomprehensible, innocuous grab for money and power and sex. The corruption is really being run by enemies of humanity in the divine plan. It's run from a solar dimension. We don't wrestle with flesh and blood as with principalities and powers from a dimensional perspective. With all of that said, again, our victory is assured, whether we make it through in our physical bodies to see the glorious new world. We're in a most exciting time, and as we choose for ourselves to choose to shake off the negativity and to not follow the lockstep programs that are put upon us, and open our minds to imagination, the potential, instead of cowering in fear with the 5G. I mean, I'm very aware of it, but I am also aware of the 5G scalar technology of my human spiritual body, and I am out projecting my own holographic new timeline of destruction of the AI, of the Red Queen AI that is being promoted and fomented to take over our world. And the good news is when people start waking up, we literally can just knock out the 5G towers, either turn it off with an agreement, take down the satellites, and possibly ask for benevolent help for our technology, whether it's given openly or secretly to us, to allow us to use non-harmful type of technology for all our communication. These are the things and the possibilities for us if we could but grab it. And it's an honor to be here with you. And I've been kind of told not to talk so much about the dark side, but in this time of revelation, because I do know it, and I am been given the grand overall hopeful plan to reveal the love and the light and to help us grow. And this isn't, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We're going to offer you this and see where your consciousness goes and what you, free of will choice, can do for each other. And if people want to keep killing each other, they have to allow that. But when it becomes an entire end game decimation of humanity using advanced technology, scheming in secret by elite family bloodlines and cabals directed by hostile extraterrestrials entrenched, it's a time for the intervention of the Galactic Confederation. And I give thanks to the Galactic Confederation of Light, to the Queen of Venus, to Valiant Thor, to the Pleiadians, to all of the ones that are here supporting. And for those who think I put my crazy hat on, maybe, but I think we're going to be understood as revelators of information that's been a little misunderstood. I thank you so much. I'm going to have to go now, but God bless you.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Until the next.
All right.